Mic check 1 2. I think we got sound, sir.
That
you can pull it towards you. There you go. If you grab it from here, yeah, it's.
Nice that I can back up away from you. There we go.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
Just a little bit closer to the mic, if you don't mind. It's very difficult for me to have to direct a director. I just want you to know I understand we're in the same realm.
Yeah,
we're equals.
I feel equal.
Equals
right at this moment. Right at this moment, you got the advantage. I have a giant microphone 2 inches from my face.
Padraic Lillis, ladies and gentlemen, is in studio with us. The idea that I just called you an equal means that probably within 5 to 20 minutes there'll be 35 raging theater people outside the door looking to kill me. That I am obviously not your equal. However, we are both Yankee fans.
So we're equally intelligent.
Welcome to Three People Like This Interviews. And now, a man who should be on some sort of fucking watch list. TJ Stone.
Yeah,
that's good.
That is something, isn't it?
It is. I think it was a good life choice.
Well, it works in the sense that we've won a lot.
Yeah.
We have won. I love when people talk like that.
It was very funny that. Well, first of all, I was going to go off on the Yankee thing, but the we. I was once on like a first date with somebody, and I referred to my relationship with the Yankees as a we, and that was the moment I saw the date end.
She just checked out.
She was like,
she just checked out.
You're not on the team.
Well,
I was like, you don't understand.
I grew up in a neighborhood where we and you and they was the norm. Like, I'm a Steeler fan, and anytime the Jets would beat us or anytime the Steelers lost, all my Jet fans friends would come out, meet me outside and go, "You guys sucked last night.
Right.
We beat yous."
Right,
we beat yous.
It's very funny though. I feel like the opposing team is always happy to say you guys suck or you guys lost, but they don't come out and say, "Hey, you won."
Right, never. It's a very male thing, like a mask, like a thing with men that we do. Like somehow that makes you better. Like, first of all, I don't know what age it was.
I picked the right team this week.
Right, but I don't know what age it was when I realized, wait a minute, I really can't even sprint. I'm not good at sprinting. How could I possibly think that I equate to Le'Veon Bell? Like, how did I win anything? I didn't win anything. The Steelers won.
Listen, I feel like if I'm not focused,
right,
then I'm hurting my team.
That's right. Well,
they need that from me.
See this water bottle?
Yeah.
If we're like down by 6 and it's 37 seconds left and we're on the 30-yard line and we need a first down, if I unscrew this, take a sip, screw it, tap it twice, and then let it go, and I break contact with my hand, that means we're going to get a first down. If I don't do that, typically we don't get the first down.
Yeah.
So that's how involved I am.
I understand. Yeah.
Do you have those little idiosyncrasies, things that you do?
My idiosyncrasies are a little more intricate. Yeah, but yeah, they involve when we're on offense, I pull out the bat.
What bat? What?
In my apartment.
Oh, do you really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're a huge baseball fan. You're a big baseball guy, right? I mean, I guess I should have introduced you at the beginning of this, right? Would that have not been a little bit more professional?
Eventually, we're going to get to it.
We'll get to it.
People will be like, I'm listening. I don't know who he is, but they're talking sports.
Part of what I do, and people call it lazy, but I call it groundbreaking. I do no study or background on my guests.
That's good. I didn't do any on you.
There's really not much, and if you did, you might not have shown up. Let's be honest. There's a lot in my background that people don't want to know about.
Want to avoid.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. But look, it was consensual. And it was consensual.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ask any midget I've ever run into, it was always consensual.
They said, we both agreed to run into each other.
Yeah, right. More or less.
Yeah.
We left out a few details, but yes. But listen, Padraic, before we get to baseball, Padraic Lillis, who are you and what do you do, sir?
Wow, there's really no research. I am the artistic director.
I'm sorry. I tried to hold it in. Well, you're the artistic director of
the Farm Theater,
which is
actually a theater company
named because
named after the farm system of baseball.
You think I didn't do research?
Yeah,
huh?
we did. That's how we did the intro.
That's right. You see that? I knew that.
I just didn't know I was going to start from the beginning. So
yeah, right from the beginning.
Born a small child.
Yeah. Where were you born?
Rochester,
New York.
Yeah.
Wow.
Upstate.
Why would I say wow to that?
Well, people didn't travel far.
Want to know why? Groundbreaking interviewer. That's why.
That's right. That was
you don't say wow. Because then people go, wow, yeah, Rochester. And then 2 minutes later, they go, why did I say wow with him?
Why was I
what does
with
that mean? It's just Rochester.
Yeah. But got me here.
It got you here, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the farm, which is just farm.
Yeah, please do.
The farm system of baseball.
We're going to be doing this a lot. I'm going to be interrupting you with my ADD, and we're going to go back. It's hard already, isn't it? It's difficult, but it's fun.
It's a lot of fun because because you have to find something useful in this. And
we're doing it.
I got a donut, so I'm okay.
No, listen, we have munchkins on the table. You can bring you have your own little personal package. Right?
Nice. Yeah.
Did you see the guy wrote Anthony on one of those? He wrote Anthony on one of my munchkin packets.
Was that
I'm going to be honest. I took a little bit of offense to that. We're not all named Anthony.
You're not.
Just because you're Italian from Brooklyn and you look like Anthony.
It's funny. That's how they label you.
They labeled me.
Yeah.
That's some real...
that's high-end profiling. However,
that's some fast food privilege that guy displayed. That's what...
the Duncan privilege.
The Duncan privilege, right?
He can do that.
Yep. Bastard. So the Farm Theater, ladies and gentlemen... When you listen back to this, you're going to say, wow, it is actually pretty good.
It's he actually knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
Thank God he pays an editor.
Oh, my God. Yeah, thanks, Bruno. Oh, my God. Bruno, we suspect is part of the Illuminati.
Well, listen, if you're going to partner with the Illuminati.
Yeah, why not? Let's go all in.
Just for everybody who's listening, we have a solo fest at the end of the month.
Come to the Solo Fest. Yes.
Just starting, because if you've got the you've got the audience.
We've got them. We've got them. Farm Theater.
All right. Cultivates early career art. Named after the farm system of baseball because it cultivates early career artists.
Yeah, you're you're a big baseball fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that about you.
Ridiculous.
Really?
There's a chance that I may not have watched either on live TV or on my phone, maybe a total of 100 of Derek Jeter's at bats. Like, I'm obsessive.
Really?
It's ridiculous.
He was an incredible talent, wasn't he?
Yeah, I realized that at the end of the year, like the end of his career, which I would watch every at bat leading up to the 3,000 hit, and then I realized I'm watching it. But when I say up to the 3,000 hit, I mean like 2,800.
Yeah. What is it about baseball that you love so much?
It's a good question. I like the pace of the game. I like the drama of the game. I think, it's that fantasy as a kid, like, 2 outs, bottom of the ninth.
Yeah.
I think I could go on about it. The thing I want to say about it is that it's the perfect thing for drama. I love that there's no clock. I love that you could come back and win at any time. You don't run out of time.
Yeah.
As long as you can do it. I love that it's perfect. I think it's perfectly designed. Like, if there's a play in the hole, deep in the, and the shortstop makes the perfect play in the hole and makes the perfect throw, and it's an out by a centimeter, it's because everything was executed
perfectly.
And if it's 1 inch too far deep in the hole to make the play and the guy should get a hit, they get a hit.
And if the shortstop's body isn't positioned in the right way and he doesn't get that ball off in the right, that's right.
Right, so it's precision.
That's right.
And and it's fun. The Yankees lost... that was hard. To Houston this year.
Oh, that was brutal to watch.
But the thing that I'll say as a fan of the game is when you watched Houston, those plays, the play at the plate, the play at third,
perfectly executed.
Execution
That's
was
right.
perfect, and it couldn't have happened any other way. And the Yankees had similar plays, and they were just off a little bit. And it's like the game is perfect that way. And when you think of like Jeter's flip play, that's just precision and excellence, and so I love that about it.
But just to hold that thought for a second, the other thing is that when Jeter pulls off a play like that, or like the play in the hole, shortstop, all of those plays are almost otherworldly athletic ability. It's so difficult to do what those guys do.
Yeah,
and yet at the highest level with that any play, like I think of Ozzie Smith when you talk about shortstops, right? But any great shortstop. Yeah. And you watch the plays of the week on the MLB Network, so you watch those plays, and they're unbelievable plays, just on a daily basis. And yet, if they don't execute in that manner, he's safe, or it's not a double play, or that's what's incredible to me is the level of athletic ability.
Yeah, it's amazing, and also they're throwing a ball at you at 100 miles an hour now regularly.
Come on, Come on.
I can't even.
How do you hit that?
I can't see without my glasses if it's a D or a B
train. I know.
Like,
well, one of the things, one of the things about me was that I coached my son's teams. One's 13, one's 9. And for the last 6 years, you listen to Brooklyn parents talk about how great their sons are. And he's going to go pro and he's going to get a scholarship. And I'm thinking, no, I'm better than him. I'm fat and I'm 49. And I'm better than your son who you think is going to go pro.
That's right. And listen, I warm up in the postseason just in case, but I know the reality. It's probably not going to happen.
Did you play when you were younger?
Yeah.
A lot? Yeah? What position?
The last couple of years I played second base.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You look like a second baseman. That's why I liked you. As soon as you walked in, I knew you were a second baseman.
Right.
You're not one of these douchey shortstops.
No, we don't need the glory.
We don't need the glory.
That we do the same job.
Oh, look at me, I'm a shortstop, Right. Overcompensating. When you walked in, he looked at the studio and said, "Oh, you're overcompensating for something, TJ."
Yeah. I mean, there's just to anybody, you can't see it, but there's 6 microphones. There's 2 of us.
I said, "Well, yeah, maybe I am," and it's not just physical. There's so much that I'm overcompensating for. I told you there was a moment the other night when I said, you're not famous, right? I'm sitting here going, this is a famous person's room and you're not famous. You understand that?
But it gave me a sense of that I should have been more impressed. And then I realized, no. No, it's still the same guy I thought it was.
Yeah.
Just a lot of nice stuff.
Unfortunately, that's the same conclusion that everybody has when they meet me in any realm, in any context, So that's fucking great, man. You named the theater.
I did, yeah. My idea
the Farm Theater.
And my idea was to cultivate early career artists, and by that it means create opportunities for people who like the farm system of baseball, who are starting out, who need, sometimes they need to be connected. I say coaching, but what I mean, because I talk about workshops, productions, and mentoring, and it's like they need opportunity to keep working before you get to the next highest level. There's always this thing of you're emerging and then you're mid-career and whatever. And I think people are emerging forever, until they're, I say playwrights are emerging until they're Tony Kushner, until somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who that is, but of course.
Yeah.
Kushner is a great example of a thing that you would say and I would not know, of course.
Yeah.
It's also a great example of whatever the example was that you're trying to make.
Thanks. Yeah. I think until they're highly established and recognized.
That's another way to put it. Shakespeare.
You know that name.
Now, he was involved in something with England?
Yeah.
He was an English guy,
he
English
was an actor,
fella.
a failed actor who just started to write plays.
Is that basically what Shakespeare was?
Nobody knows him as an actor, but he acted. So he did what a lot of people do, and they start to write.
I love the idea that you were a baseball player your whole life, and then when did you...
I like that you said whole life.
Whole life until
like 15.
It took you
actually.
a couple years
what's
less.
Funny is I started theater for the same reason. I went in. I was watching my brother in a high school play, and I saw these guys having a lot of fun with these women.
Yep, girls.
And I was like, that was it. And I'm like,
and I hate to sound misogynist, but it's a Joe Pesci line, he said that it's the bitches that'll get you. Yeah, that's Joe Pesci said that.
Yeah, Joe Pesci. You're not misogynist.
No, not at all. No. Not at all. I mean, maybe I am, but that line is all Joe.
It's true because that's what got me in. And then the foolish thing is the work. But I did.
The foolish thing is the work.
That's what kept me.
What does that mean? The foolish thing. Because you're a workaholic a little bit.
No, I ended up loving the work of theater.
That's cool though.
I just loved making the play and putting it together and analyzing the script and telling the story and doing all that, and. I went in because I was like, oh, this looks like fun. And then I realized it is fun, but the work is what's fun.
Well, it's nice when you find something you love to do and then you're good at it. that when those two things coincide, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty good.
Doesn't happen all the time.
No.
No,
I'm grateful. I wish I was really good at brain surgery.
Yeah.
you know,
Something that could help the world.
cardiologist.
But do you find that? But
I think theater helps the world.
Yeah,
I'm
well, it
going to
helps
go with
the world.
that.
Yeah, why not?
Just like when it would.
But do you find? I mean, you're a very, very respected guy. You know, I'm not doing justice to anything because I try to keep on the same level as my guests. Otherwise, it's going to be, if I really let my my imagination run wild, I'd be stammering and stuttering with who you are. But I'm trying to maintain. But the truth is you are very respected in the theater world. Do you find people, you know, is it uncomfortable for you when people are like, you know, kiss your ass a little bit, or they're like, yes, sir, and like they overdo the respect? Is it awkward?
I could live through that awkwardness. That doesn't happen that much. I'm respected. You know what? I feel like it's funny. I just heard this. Somebody said it to me the other day that I was respected. I was giving them advice, and I honestly went. I said, don't take that, because I don't care if I'm at a point now in my life where I'm like, oh, I don't care if that person likes me.
I don't care if you respect me or not.
And
right.
And they said, well, I'm going to listen. That was really good advice, because you're respected. And as soon as they said you're respected, I went, oh, I'm old.
Yeah, old. It translates to old.
That's what it felt.
That's what you think it is.
Oh,
accomplished.
Old. That's it. Accomplished. You're established. Old. And I went, all of these things mean that, you know, I've been a long time and I have gray hair.
Right. Whenever the organization that I coach for talks about the Lifetime Achievement Award, I get a little nervous. I'm like, no, I'm not ready for it.
No, thanks.
But I love it's a kids organization that I'm. and I'm talking to you, but
it's a lifetime.
But it's funny that's the natural progression for you, was to be the well, you were the overseer, like the director is like, but that's what you naturally.
It's true. I got an opportunity. I'm a member of a theater company called the Labyrinth Theater Company.
Yeah, it's very, very well respected.
Yes, yeah,
very well respected.
And
most famous for guys like me and some other guys.
Yeah, famous.
Yeah,
but we just celebrated 25 years, and I was fortunate. I got to help design and lead the education program, and out of doing that for a decade, I think I was committed to teaching and mentoring before, but then I saw the value of like, oh, the people who succeed are people who have mentors or support, or people who are just paying attention to them and saying like, oh, that's good. That's, you know, this could
there's
be...
this whole little ecosystem of stuff that takes place.
Yeah.
Typically in somebody that's successful that a lot of people don't see.
Yeah, and it's funny. I went to see a member of ours, Stephen Adley Geargis, great playwright, has a play on right now, Jesus Hopped the A Train, and the guy who's the lead in the play came through the education. So he did one of our summer retreats, and he stayed in contact with the community and Stephen and a lot of other people.
Hello.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
I'll tell that. And but
you can come in, close the door, and make yourself comfortable, sir.
But I was just going to say, it's like part of that. One of the reasons he did a great job in the play, Sean Cargeval, and he was great. But also he's in the play because, you know, he's talented enough. He did the work,
right?
But also of that community support that was built, and recognizing that really the most important thing for the development of an artist is continued support and encouragement. Whether it's your friends, we all find our community, but if somebody with a little more experience says, "Oh, here, let me tell you what I did."
Well, this is this is what I told you this was going to happen, but it's
we have
let
the door, and
we got a Frim walking in.
I didn't see a Frim,
and then some guy here. I don't know what he wants. I don't know why he's here. I don't know what's going on.
Lee Kaplan, come
Lee,
on over.
Sit down, buddy. Lee, sit down. Frim, sit down.
All right. Where are we at?
Lee, next to Patrick, we've been talking about. How we can better integrate ourselves into the heroin trade, and perhaps do it under the radar of the federal government. Frim, thoughts?
Well, there's definitely surrounded by a lot of Asian people in this neighborhood, so we could definitely get the inside scoop off.
On how to do that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Asians,
they're huge into opiates.
Asians are heroin.
It'll get back on track
dealers?
in a second.
No, we're on track. I'm sorry, sir. This is the track. No, I'm just kidding.
You and the Frim have your side job, I know, because there's only one way to pay for this studio.
That's right.
Through the heroin trade, those poppies.
At first, he was impressed by the studio, and then he said, "No, he's overcompensating for something here." And I said, "It's not physical only; it's mental." Right?
It's a combination.
So who's here now? Frim Jambaloots.
Very close, yes.
And Lee Kaplan.
And Lee Kaplan.
Hi, Lee.
Hi guys, how are you?
How does it feel to just walk into a room and then jump on a microphone?
I do it all the time.
Do you really? Is that what you do?
Yeah, that's what I do.
Actually, he's a big voiceover.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You're a voiceover guy? Mm-hmm. How'd you get into that? Here you go. You can pull it closer to you a little bit here.
Sure.
You know how it works since you're in the industry. You
Yeah.
can just do whatever you want with that.
I heard a friend doing her demo one day, and I said, I think I could do that.
Really?
So,
And that's it?
I did.
Did you just go out and buy a USB mic and start getting to work?
No, I actually took some lessons, and sort of got some advice on how to go about it. And
What's
then,
the first thing that you learned at voiceover school? I wonder what they teach you.
it wasn't so much voiceover school.
Well, that's how I see it. Take out your
Well,
notebook.
I
All
took
right.
a couple classes.
That's enough. Save your voices for the lesson.
It was I think the first thing I learned was bring your acting skills to what you do in the booth.
Essentially, it's acting, right?
Yeah.
Do you want water? I should have offered you water.
I've got
with that refrigerator backpack. So you
bottle
took some
here.
lessons. Where did you go? Did you look on your? Where do you live in New York?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming Manhattan. They have these places where you can go and get some voiceover help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's interesting to me because we have a guy who does our intros and he's a voiceover guy. And
Okay.
I got him through a friend of a friend and he's been in the industry for like 40 years.
Oh.
And he just does. He's got that deep Ricky Wheeler.
Yes.
What was your
Yes.
first job as a and that must have been exciting to get a
I think my first job was for I want to say it was a cigarette. It was some sort of a cigarette ad or something like that. It was like my first gig was something like that. And then most recently I've actually been doing I did a bunch of spots on TV for commercial spots on TV.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice,
That's
congrats,
good
man.
stuff,
That's really
man.
cool.
I just picture the beginner voiceovers all get the cigarettes because their voice isn't clear yet. They haven't worked out. So, all right, we're going to get you in the Marlboro.
Is there always one person there's always got to be one person in the group who doesn't belong there? Like, coming soon to a theater near you, movies. And the guy's trying to be all nice about it.
The instructor's like, just go and work on that for a little bit, and we're
Try
going to go
deepen
and let
your voice.
everyone else.
Okay, movies soon in a theater near you. How's that?
Great.
You know what the cool thing is? That even that today more than ever there is still a spot for a guy who has that voice. There is a demand for
I'm
that
here,
voice.
man. I'm so cheap. I am so cheap.
There you
I will
go.
work for food.
I'm telling you.
Do you remember the first one?
In fact, you know what? Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And I think I was wrong. I think that the first one, I speak Spanish, and I had auditioned for this. It was a Spanish spot, and I walked in, I booked it. And I walked in, and the guys were laughing. The producers were laughing at me. They said, "Come here!" And they said, "Look, we got guys, all these Spanish names. We got, this guy Rodriguez, this guy Lopez, all these guys who auditioned for this. And you, Kaplan, the Jewish kid, you're the one who booked this.
Yeah, we want the Jew.
Yeah,
Give us the Jew. Do you remember what it was? Can you do a little bit of it?
I can't. Right?
I'll do it. Completantos y siempre los pantalones en los cochinas. I speak a lot of stuff. Spanish
nice.
is some of it. How do you guys? So you guys, I would love I'm so dying for you to do voiceover stuff right now. But that's like when I was a comedian and I would go to a place and they say,
Be funny.
Yeah, be funny.
No, would you?
Right. I'm trying so hard, Patrick. I'm really trying. When you hear this edited together, it's not going to be any of this.
No,
It's going to be
got your A
words
material.
twisted around.
Oh boy.
All of a sudden, 2 hours alone in the studio going, okay, so the voiceover joke is,
And I'm going to take that laugh and loop it the whole time. It's just going to hear that laugh with me saying stuff, right?
10-hour YouTube video of just that loop.
Yeah, just a 10-hour loop of that. I love that you're a voiceover guy, and you guys are working together. Tell me about Lee a little bit, Patrick, because you insisted that he was here, and you said if he doesn't come, you were going to physically assault me. So the floor is yours.
Well, it wasn't much.
And
of
he
it.
has a bat, and he's a baseball fan. You know he
Right.
knows how to swing. It's just not like a regular guy. Like as an Italian from Brooklyn, I respect
You understand that,
Yes.
it was a real threat. Yeah.
In the 80s, we used to do that a lot. Not me, my friends.
People I call family.
Mm-hmm.
Lee, I'm going to go on for a second here. I say that like that's going to happen. It's never going to happen. Get interrupted. But Lee and I met because he's doing a show and doing it in the festival that the farm's putting on called Bully, on bullying, and it's his story. And we met. A mutual friend recommended us, and we met to talk about the play. And I sat down and liked the story. It came from his journal when he was in junior high of being bullied.
Wow.
And it was great. We sat and we talked and then shaped the play, and then he's been touring it for 5 years. It's great.
And you were involved from the beginning?
Yeah, I claim the beginning,
Oh, yeah, it was the
he,
beginning.
He wrote, he sent me something that was like 53 pages that I like to say seemed like a journal entry.
Mm-hmm.
But the story was compelling. It was not a play yet. And then we met,
Right.
and I just pretty much put the script aside and said,
Tell me why you want to do this. It seemed like a journal
this.
entry because it was so compelling and it was heartfelt.
It was heartfelt, it was honest, but it was not a script. It was a lot of narrative,
Yeah.
of his story. And it was impressive. And then we talked, and I said, tell me why do you want to tell the story, and what is the story? And then from there, we shaped the play. And it's a really great personal story of his experience. And when you said the thing about if he wasn't there, I would threaten you, I thought it's funny because he put it in it a metaphor of boxing. And Lee started training with boxing. And the framework of the play is him taking on the 4 bullies of his youth through boxing.
God, I love
And he's in
everything about this, and I have no idea what the story is yet.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking, you seem like such a sweet guy. And to have, where did you go to? What school was it in that you got bullied?
Well, it was in the middle school and the junior high school
in New York City. You grew up in them?
No, I actually grew up in the South. I grew up in and around Jacksonville, Florida.
That's funny because people in the South don't strike me to be the type of people that would bully someone.
No, definitely not.
Jacksonville. Well. That's my invitation of everyone in the South. I guess we got ourselves a little Jew boy here, huh? Well, Leo Kaplan. Is that what it was? Look, I'm sorry. Did I just give you a flashback?
Well,
was that his trigger? Was that what it was?
It's
Son of a bitch.
It's interesting because the truth was that I was certainly in a minority when it came to religion. I mean, I was one of a very small group of Jewish kids who were there.
The idea that children would dial in on a religion to begin with is insane.
But having said that, the reality is that they didn't. They were smart enough not to sort of dial in and be open about making fun of me because of my religion.
Yeah, they were just cunty about other shit.
They were,
Patrick, I'm going to get exponentially more articulate as this goes on. I just want you to know.
That was good. I think you hit all 4 letters in that one syllable word. That was really good.
Look, we could do a little work together, write some stuff, and just put it out there. Like a play.
Yeah, if you could, you do a journal.
I'll do a journal entry.
You do a journal entry, and I'll see if we can turn it into.
You can submit it to the authorities, and
we can make a tweet.
Right. Thank you.
You actually have 280 characters now, so you can even.
No, it's a much bigger compliment than it was before.
It really was. I love. All right, tell me about the trauma again. Yeah. Right?
I wonder if people can appreciate that turn without having seen it in person visually.
That was so good.
That was such a good turn.
Thank you, sir. Is that what you call that, turn?
Yeah, it's a turn.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah. Well, it's going back to serious from.
That's fine.
That's exactly what it was. What Patrick was saying. It wasn't necessarily clear, except for a couple of things that they would point out to me. Why they were picking me, why they were targeting me, and that's something that I've talked a lot about, both during the show and also in the question and answer sessions that we hold after every show that I do.
What type of things would they do? I want to get specific a little bit because I don't think when you hear the word bully, it sounds vague almost. Like
no, it
bully. What happens specifically? You know,
that's where we go in the play. I mean, there are moments of physical abuse.
Yeah.
There are moments of, to be sure, emotional abuse,
Yeah.
psychological abuse, verbal abuse, all of that.
There's an amazing thing because it's Lee's personal story and it's really specific, and that's what makes things universal, is how specific something is. And there's this part in the story where Lee has this line where he says, it almost seems like between 5th and 6th grade, the whole school got together and decided to pick on me. And
yeah, it becomes this thing.
And I remember
like he's the guy.
He's the guy, and every class had that guy.
Yeah.
And it was not that everyone agreed. It just somebody became an outcast and became a target. And I thought his story is very specific to its specific bullying and its specific things that are happening. But it sounds like, oh, all right, that happened not to me, but in my school.
That's right. Yes,
and you saw it. So it was,
it's that mob mentality that you learn on from a young age. And what's crazy is that he grows up. Typically, people like you grow up to be the most empathetic, the most sympathetic, the most. That's where your good leaders come from. I think. unfortunately, you have to go through that. So how did you combat? So you're navigating this world, fifth, sixth. Did it continue? It continued into high school?
Oh yeah, it was
Jesus.
the worst of it was fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth.
Yeah.
And then I tell the story. Actually, I get asked this quite a lot. We just took the show out to California. Just got back. We toured 11 schools in Palm Springs and LA, and question and answer sessions after everyone. We were in front of more than 5,000 people, around 5,000 people when we were out there. And almost every time this question, one of the kids, would stand up and say, what happened? How did it stop? How did you eventually get, And so I said, well, I changed schools, beginning of high school. And I remember the first day of my high school experience vividly, because I got there to that new school, and I looked around and I realized that some of these same kids from the old school had come with me. They had transferred as well to the same school. Mm-hmm. And I remember just being completely out of body experience. I looked around and I couldn't focus on anything that was going on because I realized that I felt like it was going to start happening all over again, and that these same kids, which is actually what happened. They tried again to make fun of me and to get under my skin, and after a while, it just sort of petered out.
Kind of
maybe in some horrible way, it was them trying to latch on to something because they had to change too. And it's weird to look at the bully and think, they're in a new place and like, oh, there's the kid we made fun of. Now let's continue to do that because that kind of allows us to have some stability in this thing that changed, which is very weird.
Were you immobilized by fear? Like, did you ever go to an adult? Or was there ever anybody you could confide in that maybe, or was it like, do you not talk to somebody about it? Like, how do you deal with that at that age?
I mean, I was 10. I was 10, 11 when I first started writing the journal, and
oh man,
and
that was his outlet.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, there's. My parents, to be sure, knew all about what was going on. I mean, I would come home. I mean, I vividly remember coming home, dropping my bags, going straight to my room, and just bawling. I was inconsolable. My parents would take me into the school. Of course, we would talk with the administrators, and I talk about that in the show too. And it didn't do anything except for get me bullied, worse, to sort of feed the fire. And then the other, interesting part of this is that this journal that I started keeping was indeed an assignment at the beginning of the year from one of my teachers, who said, okay, you're going to keep this journal throughout the year, and you're going to intermittently hand it in to me for me to check over. And so purportedly she was reading this thing, and I always say, Patrick, if she had been reading it, like really reading it, I don't think that this would have gone on.
You know what it reminds me of? I have two kids. I have two boys, 13 and 9. And now so I've watched them go through different stages. They've been on both ends of it. So whenever my son, the older one, so I've watched him go through grade school. Now he's in 8th grade. We're looking for high schools. And I have a 9-year-old. Same thing. It's funny. Boys, that male dynamic, it's always that one up and that fucking alpha bullshit that happens, right? Yeah. What helped my boys a lot was we train in martial arts together, Frem and I. So that concept, it's really about peace. And I was going to get to that in a minute because I know you've started training, and that opened my eyes to a lot of the way we conduct ourselves. But there's a situation right now this week that's happening with my son. He used to be very good friends with a kid, and that kid, they were playing football, and I watched that kid walk onto the side of the schoolyard, sit by himself, and start crying. Now, when you're a parent watching kids play football, you don't know the nuances. You don't know what's happening. You don't know who said what. So, immediately I recognized it. I said, this is a problem. And so I talked to my son, Michael, about it. The other kids don't like him anymore. He's stupid. He's mean to us. We're being mean back to him. So, but, maybe the kid said something. So I'm trying to navigate this thing and find out the real information. I said, all right, I'm calling his father. And my wife's response immediately, and the other moms were like, no, let them figure it out. Wrong answer. I said wrong answer, because there's a lot of kids out there, and I swear this happened maybe 2 days ago. There's a lot of kids out there that if somebody would have been an adult and took control of the situation, I don't care what they think about me. Right. We're adults. Let the men figure it out. And I went to the kid's father, and the kid's father said, let them work it out. No, no, man.
Wow.
So as you're telling me this, I'm thinking the adults knew what to do, but that sentence, let them work it out, is insane.
It is.
Like, there's grown men that can't work shit out. You're leaving it up to a 10-year-old, right?
And the idea that you said, and they decided they don't like him. I mean, it's the same thing. It's like
Right.
that one kid. I'm like, wait, they? He's one of them. Like, he's a kid.
Right, Michael,
Right.
my son's name is Michael. Michael, what is it that you don't like about Sammy anymore? You said you don't like him anymore. You know, he said I was stupid, and then he said I was garbage, and I told him he was garbage, and then the only time and I said, but look, you see what you're doing? He called you this, he called you that. He's sad, Michael. He's looking for attention. He wants to be a friend again. You know, I'm trying to explain these little things to him, and even if he says stupid things, he's saying it, let it go. Like, it breaks my heart to watch, and I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, it's the same thing, man. You know, it's the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny, the thing about stepping in, because you asked the question of, like, yeah, I'm glad you did what you did, because in Lee's story, like, the teacher should have read the journal. He goes to a gym coach. They go to the count, and
Wow.
it makes me laugh every time. Like, and there's teachers, and I have friends who are teachers who will explain to you the difficulty of what they can't do and what they can do and
Yeah.
what they do.
Yeah.
But the idea that somebody says there's zero tolerance in a school of bullying, like,
Nonsense.
You put 500 13-year-olds together.
It's nonsense.
There's no way you could have zero tolerance of
It's
bullying.
a catchphrase.
Yeah.
It's a zero tolerance it's buzzwords.
It is.
Buzzword means-
Yeah, zero tolerance. Now,
Zero-
leave me alone.
Right. I can't do anything
I have
but
no
the zero
tolerance for these complaints.
Yeah.
And I'll say that, you know, that there's something that Padraic and I have talked a lot about is that, and you know this, being a parent of kids around this age, is that, you know, you go around a school and you see those posters, you see the zero tolerance posters, you see that the schools are doing things to sort of let the kids be, you know, let it be known that
Yeah.
they have these policies. But we find that with a show like this, with a theatrical performance like this, it reaches the students and also the teachers and the administrators in a different way than a poster on the wall will.
Yeah, you know, a poster on the wall, you know what it becomes? It becomes the same thing as wash your hands before you leave the bathroom or exit in, out. It's the sign. It doesn't mean anything. Like, you know what I mean? It's like fire extinguisher. Don't bully. Like, you know what I mean?
Do not open door. Alarm. Exiting this way.
Hot water in sink. Like, it's like, okay, right. Oh, but that's really for the parents because we process that.
That's right. They're
My-
like, oh, look, they're so anti-bullying. Look at all these posters.
Right. My 9-year-old is still wondering where oxygen comes from. He doesn't even know what that sign means.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So how did you evolve out of it? So talk to me about like high school when you started training and stuff like that.
Well, you mean try training as a boxer? Is that
Well,
what you-
yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. We left
How'd you
off
get out of
in
it?
high school. Yeah, I mean, just in high school. I mean, it's such an interesting story.
Well, you know, I would say that in a lot of ways the theater brought me out of it because I went to that new school and immediately gravitated right to the theater program and found you know and if I'm honest, I wish this weren't the case, but it's true that I actually experienced some sort of rough behavior there as well
In the theater group.
in the theater group that I found in that. It becomes sort of a different story, but
in
you know,
what
but-
way? Was it physical or was it more mental? Was it
No, it wasn't physical.
nitpicky?
It was you know, it wasn't like it was when we were middle school and junior high school. Rather, it was on a different level.
Yeah, typically it's ego, right?
Yeah, you know, things exactly
Insults and ego.
yeah, but
yeah,
but
in a lot of theater stuff, there tends to be more drama off the stage than on the stage.
Is that right? Is
Unfortunately,
that right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
So I, you know, so I did, however, find some measure of comfort, you know, in that in the theater program, and made some friends, made some new friends. You know, when that behavior started again, these kids who had come with me to that school, they were doing things like calling me those same names, chanting the kinds of names that they would chant when I was at the other school. You know, doing things like taping my locker shut, all those things to really, you know, and I was at least able to find comfort in people that I felt like were more like me.
Good for you, man. How many? The idea that you wouldn't strike back at these people, like as a kid, you're not capable, mentally or physically, to like the idea that somebody does that. Like your instinct is like you want to knock him out,
Right.
Want to knock him out, but people don't understand what fear does. Like immobilize you. You start to believe the things they say about you. Now that becomes who you are. Right? Is that right? Is that a
accurate? That's actually one of the lines in the play. Is I may not get the exact words, but it is something along the lines of, once you've heard these names enough times, it's hard not to start believing they're true.
Yeah, it's the Pooter effect, I believe it's called. I hate to be so articulate and
I'll go with
intelligence
that.
based. No, but really, it's called the Pooter effect. When you say something enough times, it becomes true. Donald Trump knows all about it, fellas.
It's true.
But a politician will tell you that. You say something enough times, it becomes true. And then, so when did you start taking up boxing? And then, was that theater experience, was that a little bit of a relief now? Now you started to get some self-confidence and understand that you're bigger and better than what they said about you? And
You know, I wish I could say that was true. I think in reality, the reason I feel so passionate about doing this now, about working with Padraic, and by the way, I mean, the experience working with Padraic has been phenomenal, and he's an amazing director.
I heard he's pretty good at that stuff.
He is just fantastic, and I'm honored to this day. I'm honored that Padraic is the one who's directing this play.
That's good stuff.
And I think, and I say I feel so passionate about it because, you know, there have been a lot of surveys done over the last decade that talk about the impact of bullying, what happens when not just to the victims, but also to the bullies themselves after they experience this, and it is a traumatic event that, according to these studies, and certainly according to my personal experience, stays with me into adulthood.
It does, doesn't it? It informs what you do in the future, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, and that inspired me. The more I read about that, the more I see kids now, and obviously adults in our theatrical performances. You know, it motivates me, makes me say, okay, well, we can bring this message. And then you asked about the boxing, and that was an impulse that I had from the start. I went to a trainer that I'm working with. His name is Berto Reyes. He is a MMA guy. He does a lot of boxing as well. My impulse was, I want to be able to stand up for myself and fight back like I couldn't when I was a kid.
Right.
It makes me, you know, still to this day, it gets me, because that's something that I feel very passionate about.
Yeah, that's good. How long have you been training?
I started training right when I started. Padraic and I were writing the show, so that's about 4. Well, it's on and off. I want to say it's on and off for about 5 years. Hasn't been consistent throughout that entire period because I've been on tour and things of that nature. So it's been on and off for about 5 years.
Was there a point in your training when you said, "Oh, I can hurt people really badly now," and then you feel like a responsibility not to?
Yeah. I mean, I know you guys are training as well. So, I mean, yeah, I would say absolutely. When we really started to get into it, and Padraic and I would rehearse, and, you know.
And he would hit me.
He hits me when nobody's looking.
Actually, what I want to say about the training, that because Lee is pretty slender build, and, you know, whatever, I don't know what unassuming when he walks in, you know, and we do this thing at the final
quick speed.
The final fight moment, you know, not blowing anything. I hope everybody comes, but he takes off his shirt to do this boxing thing with the final bully, and as soon as he turned around, I went, well, you know, no costume designer can design that. Like, he's obviously been. I didn't know boxing was that good of a workout.
Yeah, he's ripped
but all of a sudden it was like,
he's like ripped up.
It's like the Hulk.
No, he's a killer. I could tell just looking at the speed and the quickness is what kills.
Yeah.
You know, and
it's funny you asked that question about, do you feel this, because he's doing all this training. I'm like, you can't do that, because eventually you're going to want to fight. Yeah. You can't go into that ring every day and train and not want to fight. I said, you're going to do it and you're going to get hit. He's like, no, I'm just doing it for the training. It's so good. 6 months later, so I'm sparring now.
That's right.
It lures you in. It's like, hey, come on.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
Nobody can touch me, bro. Nobody can touch me. You're like, what happened to my boy here? What's going on, man?
So the show's changing course, Padraic. We're beating the crap out of bullies from beginning to end. Calling them names. We're digging into their religions.
We're going to invite the real ones in, challenge them.
For the show. Right. Tell them they want a contest to New York City to see a show, and then just start punching them in the face in the middle of the theater. All the way down the line.
Right. So the show's been going on 5 years now?
Yeah, it's we premiered it in the fall. Actually, we premiered it the week after Hurricane Sandy hit in 2012.
Okay. And this was when you were on, and where was the first place? Like, is it?
We did it at United Solo Festival on Theater Row there.
Okay.
And it was great. It was great, actually. We did 2 shows and both were sold out, and it was one of those moments when you don't know. You're doing a personal story based on a journal, and Lee's done great. The structure of the story was good and all this, but watching the people and react, laugh is always nice. That's good. That's affirming. But then you're seeing them leaning in, and you see a little tear, and then they all stand up at the end, and it's like, oh, right.
I love it, man.
That's special because
how difficult is it to structure a story like this when there's so much to choose, so many moments, and so much to sift through?
I'm going to say I'm really, I've said it to him numerous. I'm proud of what we did. It's hard.
It's hard
because you have to get rid. You have to give a structure to it. You have to you're telling your narrative story. You're telling your story, so you know how it ends. You have to figure out what's important in the middle that needs to be told. It was great that he had these 4 bullies, so we sort of had chapters of growth, but also the bullying had to
It's
grow.
great that he had 4 bullies. That's funny. I don't know, just for the story it works.
For the story, because he had,
No, obviously you don't mean that.
No,
I
do actually, because you structured it really well.
I'm so happy there was 4.
And it was great that the most abusive.
I was hoping it was 3, but
the
since it was
most
4, it's
abusive
kind of great.
No, because that gave us like a 5-act, more like Shakespeare. The 3 would be cinematic.
Yeah.
It was much better that way.
I'm so happy the 4th was the most abusive. Is that what you were going to say?
It was brutal. It was the hardest to overcome.
Shit.
But the thing you're asking in solo shows really is actually the hard thing, because those things are easy. Like that could be a 10-minute story, and then there's this guy and this guy. But then what to include in between, and what lessons, and then figuring out how it parallels to today, and I'm really proud of it because it connects. The structure of it is so. It's just a really good story in how it's built, and but it is that it's finding what has to be in there, and then not repeating yourself. That's the challenge, because I got bullied again, or repeating information about, he talks about his younger brother, and it's like the audience is really smart, so you don't want to give them the information
you have to pick and choose where that information comes out, right?
And they'll go on the ride with you, and that's where one of my proudest things of this project, and I've done a bunch of solo shows, and the thing is, when the script gets tight, it's because the artist who's telling the story has done the work to realize, like, everything I do isn't important or interesting. What's important is the story, and willing to shape it. And
Friend has told me that a million times.
yeah. I was going to say, like, your editor is an artist, and I am.
He really is.
And
you might want to talk to him.
I'm so
he
grateful
makes me
for
seem
him.
interesting from time to time, which is a challenge. No, I
listened before, and I was like, this is not the experience I had.
But it will be. That's the crazy part. So you have a younger brother? How much younger than you?
I do. He is. He's about a year and a half, almost 2 years younger than I am.
Oh, so as you're going through this, he's following behind you. And what was his experience like?
Well, I tell you, it's. I'm glad you asked that, because it's something I wanted to say earlier, and that is that we were talking about personality types and how certain kids are able to handle versus other kids who aren't as able to handle. And my brother and I have very distinct, of course, as I'm sure your 2 sons do, very distinct personality types, and very different in that way. And my brother, this is this moment we put into the show. There was a moment where my brother, of course, bore witness to everything that was happening to me. And at one point, he just turned to me and he's like, do you want me to beat him up for you?
Yeah. And he's a year and a half younger than you. And he's ready to throw down.
Yeah, he was absolutely. And that is, my brother just doesn't take it. He's listen, he's not, I'm not taking this. And he saw how hard a time I was having. And, so his experience was different.
You didn't want him to? You were like, no, I leave it alone. You don't want him to get in trouble.
Yeah, of course I didn't want him to get in trouble. But there were a couple moments where he just, he had it, and I remember it, he just, he had it, and he stood up to a couple of these guys and backed him down,
He did?
Absolutely, he did. Yeah.
My little guys have such distinct personalities. That's right. My 13-year-old, so we trained at the same school, And my 13-year-old, we got our black belts together. He started when he was like 5. Wow. So when he was around 11 and a half, 12, he got his little junior black belt. And that's
great.
The interesting thing about him is that there was a kid every day pushing him, yelling at him, being mean to him. And I watched it, and he was like in 6th grade. And I said, Tommy, what's up with that kid, man? You know, because I know how dangerous he is. And he said, Dad, I can destroy him. He doesn't know that I can destroy him. He said, so he pushes me a little bit. He says some stupid things. He's like, he never gets me mad. If I get mad, then he's got a problem. So he, you know.
It's amazing.
And then one day, the kid went too far, and I didn't realize it. And I just happened to turn around, and my son knocked him out. And it's crazy, blasted him. And, you know, I said, oh my, because I never thought that it would come to that. I made a mistake. I should have intervened a little bit. Whereas the other guy will run screaming off the out of the playground, talking about how he's being destroyed by the human race and everybody hates me and I hate that guy and get me out of here. Like, he runs, you know. So it's interesting. But again, the martial arts thing, like, he was so calm and so unaffected that he had a little like governor in his head about, all right, this is enough. Now I punch you.
Like, what's too much? What's not enough?
He didn't show any anger or anything.
Yeah, it is. I mean, God, that story is fascinating on so many levels. You know, it is interesting. It's something that Padraic and I have talked quite a lot about in terms of, you know, how much do we focus on the physical, you know, in terms of standing up for yourself, defending yourself, versus all the other, obviously, the steps that are available.
There's the 4th bully.
Yep.
Where his lesson, he goes through each, and then after each he gives a lesson, like, here's how you defeat a bully, blah blah blah, and the final one is sometimes you have to knock him out, right? And then we debated. We didn't. It's funny. We debated. I never shifted because I actually believe that.
You believe knock him out?
Yeah, I do, because, but I don't think I don't think my opinion is the only opinion.
It's not ultra violent. It's not horrible. It's sometimes you have to.
And so we knew that there would be a conversation at the school. Like, we had this long debate in rehearsal because he was like, well, the schools aren't going to like that. And I said, the schools are going to have to talk about this like they're human beings, because you can say, don't, and you should go tell an adult, and you should do this. You know what?
Can we not talk about that impulse
that is in everyone? Can we not talk about the fact that sometimes your teacher doesn't stop it in time? And I don't, you know, it's funny, we're talking a lot about bullying. You know, I don't want the kid to go home and kill themselves because they had no recourse and no defense.
That's the other thing.
Listen, in today's world, especially information age, social media age, these kids now have a way of turning everything even more internally, because now there's no means of escape from the bullying. At least, you know, I'm 34, so in my time I was in that bridge of like no social media, smartphones, to having it all the time. So when I was a kid, I kind of, you know, dealt with whatever bullying or pushing around happened with comedy. I just kind of became the funny kid because I wasn't athletic. I wasn't into any of that stuff. At 15, I started training martial arts, developed confidence, got into theater, and I was like, oh, wow, okay. And then it was funny because I would look and notice, oh, this is happening to other people too. It's kind of stopped happening to me because there was some physical manifestation of something. But these kids today, they'll go home, they're looking at their phone, there's more bullying happening, maybe even directed to them. So then now they get more internal. And like you said, there's kids fucking committing suicide, man, because, and they're not even, not that there should be an age range for your suicide, but shit, man, they're kids.
They're kids. And
it's
I feel
crazy.
like, and if you don't talk, at least we put it in the show, because I said we at least have to talk about the fact that, like, that's a reality. And if you don't do, not the suicide part, that's my show. But if you don't talk about the hitting back and the standing up for yourself as a viable option, and not that it's the one that I recommend or that I'm right. I also don't want to say like I'm right. There might be therapists and counselors and everybody who knows another way to do it. But I'm the youngest of a brother who's 2 years older than me. And, you know, if he didn't come to my defense when I was if he didn't come and hit the older kid who was hitting me, that would have gone on every day.
Wow. So you can personally relate to this.
Oh,
I think all of us can on a certain level.
I think we can all do it. I mean, it wasn't debilitating. I mean, it was funny. It was like there's a certain period I remember in like 4th or 5th grade where I didn't want to go home from school because I'm like, oh, I know this is going to be 20 minutes of hell.
Wow.
You know, but I didn't want to stay at school. I mean, that wasn't good either. Like, who wants to? I didn't want to hang out in 4th. But it's, you know, it wasn't debilitating. That's the thing. Like for Lee, it continued and it was debilitating. For me, it was a short period of time, and it was an annoyance. It
was an annoyance, but also, I'm sure it left a little bit of an indelible mark that you can refer to and understand.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
You know.
And I don't want to, you know, it's funny. I'm like, I don't want to diminish that, but I'm at the same time going, oh, it wasn't the same story, you know.
Something that popped in my head where you were saying that in the fourth bully and talking about like addressing the actual impulse of violence, that even in karate and training, one of the tenets is that there is no first strike as a practitioner. You're not the person ever throwing the first punch. It's an element of self-defense. Yep. So whether it's right or wrong, I think to address that question is important because it is an impulse in us that if something is being thrown our way, and let's say you don't have the experience or the training or the wherewithal to realize how to deal with that, then that impulse is going to be boom, strike. But then also, you know, if you do have that awareness and that training and something has hit a level, then it is actually appropriate to use that. It doesn't mean it makes you feel good.
Yeah. No.
But it sometimes it becomes the only answer to a question, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, look, we train, it's interesting because we're very existential, and the person we train with is a very spiritual minded type of guy, and he is a world-renowned martial artist. Like right? I mean, I'm not overselling this. This guy is a legend.
He was somebody who was a competitor in his youth, and he totally in his training now he's against that. He doesn't believe. He refers to himself as a reformed competitor because he felt like it was a form of bullying, a form of abuse, oppression, putting two people against each other to do this thing that was like either entertainment or fighting or whatever. And he's like, no, you can simply train in the art for the love of the art. It doesn't have to be for someone else's entertainment or whatever. So he wants to have people train to build confidence, to not have to deal with these things. So he's not trying to throw these kids into competitive scenarios. He wants to be like, hey, you train because you're good enough to just train for you. You don't have to do it for any other component other than develop yourself physically, mentally, and your confidence, and go into the world.
I love that. I mean, I feel like that's the gift that I've given myself in deciding to train in boxing. I didn't even realize I was giving myself that gift.
Right, that's the gift.
Absolutely love.
You're enlightened beyond words right now.
Yeah.
Because what happens. I know it sounds funny coming from me, but what happens is, you get back to the bullies, right? Now, as someone who knows. You're a martial artist, essentially. You can call it what you want.
Boxing is an American martial art. Yeah.
Right. So, but that mindset, what happens is you start to become empathetic and realize the defect in the character of the bullies. You start to realize that they are defective people and they have so much wrong with them. You know, you almost become empathetic towards their plight.
You know, and I'll say, you know, that what's been fascinating. God, there's so much. This is great discussion. There's so much that has come out in a lot of the question and answer sessions that we've had. You know, and we could sit here for hours talking about, you know, all the things that people have revealed about themselves.
Sure.
One woman I remember early on in one of my performances regionally, I think it was down south, and she stood up and said that she had been a bully. This was a grown woman. She had been a bully when she was a kid because she was being abused at home. And she just wanted one of the teachers or somebody in the faculty to ask her what was wrong. And she started to just act out and bully kids and be mean to kids just so that she could get some attention. And nobody ever did. So she just kept being mean because she was.
It's in a weird way, like the yin to that yang.
Yeah.
It's the same of like the teacher probably not reading your journal.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, that
That's
kid
exactly
acted
right.
out in some other way to get that adult advice or attention, and then it's really crazy when you look at it. It's all cyclical.
Yeah, and I think, speaking of the cyclicality of it, Padraic and I have been doing this for about 5 years, and I think back in the late 2012 when we were talking about this, I imagine if you'd asked us then, what would happen over the course of doing this, and our hope was that, through all of the anti-bullying related initiatives that are going on, that we would notice a decrease or a decline in this kind of behavior. And as you guys were just talking about earlier, cyberbullying has taken this to a different level, to the point where
but the first lady's addressing that.
The first lady. I wish. Yeah, now we don't have anything to worry about, right?
I suspect
Why are
she's
we
a
here?
robot.
Let's go grab lunch, guys.
I
Come
think
on.
the first lady's a robot. I think she's a bot.
Could be.
I think they made her in Japan.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what. Honestly, I'm not sure what she's doing. I don't know what she's doing. What I do know
She's a bot.
is that over the summer, just this past summer, I was on a short film shoot upstate, and it was at a school, and there were a number of high school students who were there as background actors, as sort of featured players, and we were on our lunch break, and we were all kind of sitting around just talking, and I said, "What's going on, guys? How's it going? What happens at school now? Because I want to know." And they're like, "We get death threats. Our peers create fake social media pages so that they can threaten us anonymously and not have anybody ever trace it back to
Such a
whomever
weird-
that is." And
What is that?
I don't know.
What is that?
Which they can, but they're not going to put the time in to trace those things. You can find all that stuff via
Of course, you
IP
can hack
addresses
it.
and all that
Easy,
stuff.
but who's going to sit around and actually do that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so unfortunate.
And so that's what's happening. That's the reality of what's happening. And and we live obviously in a huge metropolitan area. I find my thoughts drift many times to kids who are in less urban, perhaps more rural areas of the country where there isn't as much attention being placed on this, where there aren't enough teachers to pay attention to all the students who are around, where the numbers just don't even out. My heart goes out to the kids who are suffering.
You know what I was thinking about too while you guys are talking is now, so you write the play, you have the script, the audition process. Were you a part of it?
It's a solo show.
It's just me.
No. Oh, you're kidding me.
That's what I was going to say. We're doing.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
Well, I
thought it was. I thought it was.
I might have, TJ.
No, I don't think he. Did you know it was a solo show?
I would have assumed it was a solo.
Really? I know. I thought you guys.
No, I was going to say because we're doing
just
this solo fest. We're doing 3 solo shows coming up, but so the audition process was hard because I had somebody different in mind for the part.
No, really?
Oh my God! Imagine
great.
you give Padraic the script. You're like, all right, so when do we start? Well, all right, we're gonna have the audition process. So if you know anybody who's interested in,
Let me know because I got somebody in mind who'd
our
be
friend's
great.
coming in at 12.
You'd love him. He's a black belt. He's big.
Dude, there was no. This is a solo
Ghost of
show.
Bully
I
Past.
love that it's a solo show.
Yeah, it's just me.
I
up
don't
there.
feel foolish or retarded
No,
right now.
not at all.
No.
Not a little
I
bit.
keep. You don't have to, but I'm going to give a plug for this thing that we're doing right now.
Please.
Just
Please do, man.
Please
we'll
do.
cover.
I have to.
Cover for the audition.
No, I can
process.
edit that out and make
Yeah, it's
myself
good.
look smart
Of
again.
course.
So we're
Although I
do-
won't because it's funny.
It's great. So we're
The
doing
awkward cringe moment when you guys have to go. No, it's a solo show, TJ.
What I wrote to you was
You had us
like
for an
solo,
hour and now
like
we hate you.
Solo Fest is when other solo shows are
because we're
part
doing
of the.
3 solo shows, and one is bully. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but the other one is Douglas Terrell is doing a thing called The American Soldier, and we're just talking about war, and what he's doing is it's on PTSD, and it's from letters and interviews from soldiers and family members from the Revolutionary War to every American war up to today. So no, war's never going to end, but it's amazing how similar the PTSD effects are. And we just performed that at the Library of Congress on Veterans Day, and that was cool. And then the other show is a show that I wrote called Hope You Get to 11, or What Are We Going to Do About Sally? That's about suicide awareness, very much in the vein of Spalding Gray narrative, and talks about the thought process around suicide. And those 3 shows are going.
It's a wonderful show.
It's good stuff, right?
And
how was the audition process for that?
You want to know what's funny? I just had somebody. I've only been doing this for 5. I did mine for a year.
That's right.
And it's 80% of it is my story, right? And I just had this guy in Florida approach me saying he'd like to perform it. Now I'm not ready to give up those rights? That's kind of flattering. Like, oh, that'd be great. You could do it, but it's me, and it's me,
you,
and it opens with me having a conversation with my mom, and I'm like, I can't.
It's still your baby.
I still can't picture, like, you're gonna play. I know you're not gonna play me. You're gonna personalize it and make it, your experience. But it was just a weird idea that I'm not ready to let go of it. It's
but
very flattering.
you're not in a position where you're looking to.
I was
allow,
I
don't know if you could accept somebody else saying those words yet.
I can't yet. I was like, I said, I'll come down and do it. Like, if you want to hire me to do the play. And he's like, no, I'd really like to perform it. And it's because it's on Tuesday. And it's great. It comes from a great place. I don't like, it's very funny, like the great bully story earlier. It comes from a place of love because they had somebody in their theater company commit suicide. And he wants to do something for their company. And that's, and I thought, oh, that's a great place. And I actually am working on trying to figure out how I feel about it because I haven't quite let go of the show. But I do want the whole idea of the show is to talk honestly and eliminate shame so that we can talk about anything. I want to say the issue is suicide, but it's not really suicide. It's bullying. It's PTSD. It's money. Talk about the fact that you're, whatever your struggle is and challenge is, to eliminate shame, because that is the thing that's going to cripple you to isolation.
The root. I think there's a huge loss in the ability to just have that conversation with another human being, like. And especially going back to bullying and talking about kids and kind of the cyber element in social media, in acting, you do, you're just looking at your partner and you're trying to like take something off of them and what's going on. And that requires an awareness of body language, of listening to the person that's in front of you. And I think that's a lost element, especially amongst children. They're so and this phones and social media is not going away. It's not the villain. It's not the enemy. It's not like money is evil. Evil is evil. So people just need to learn that. And it's like, okay, this is not leaving, but how do we still keep that element of connection and being able to speak about these subjects that are quote unquote taboo? It's like you try to bring up suicide and people like they gasp like, oh my God, how could you? Because it exists. Because there's people in my family and most likely your family that have done that. And where did that come from?
I'm going to say, and it's interesting. I was inspired to write the show not only because of my thought process, but I was inspired because I was a guest artist at a university and a student that everyone says, no one would suspect, but committed suicide. And nobody wanted to. The counselors at the school were great, but nobody really knew how to talk about it outside of that. And I thought, I'm going to write it. And actually, it was funny. I wrote it, and then I said, do I really want to do this? And then I saw somebody post on social media from my high school that their child had committed suicide, and they wrote, nobody's talking about this. And I said, all right, well, I got to do this.
Right.
But bullying, interesting, right? That's a big issue that people are doing. And so, or that people are aware of, and there's a zero tolerance, so they're bringing it into the schools, which is great. Suicide, the school where the student who committed suicide, there was a person there wanted to bring me in, person getting their master's in theater therapy. I forget the actual thing. And she said, no, the school doesn't want to do it because somebody will still be at school who was here when that person committed suicide or overlapped with that student, who I call in my play Sally. And I thought, everywhere I've performed the show, somebody is dealing with suicide. And
you also don't think these kids know about this stuff?
Right.
Like, oh, if we magically don't talk about it, maybe they won't.
They'll never think about it.
Maybe they won't know porn exists because they can just hop on it immediately on their phone, or maybe they won't know.
Right. It was such
horrible
a
other things.
I thought we don't want to talk about this because somebody's dealing with it. Right?
Right. Yeah, right. We don't want to acknowledge the truth of it because it exists.
The irony of not saying, like, yeah, they're dealing with it, so we should maybe let them know they shouldn't be dealing with it alone.
Alone. Talk
Exactly.
about it. And the master's student who was putting that together was great. I mean, we'll do something. But I've done it, and just like Lee's experience when I said, oh, everybody stood, it was interesting when I presented my show, and I know Lee has had the same experience with bullying, is for a month, every day, somebody said it personally to me or texted me or emailed me or something, their relationship to the issue. And so you realize, like, just like the bullying issue, like, oh, this isn't isolated, and it's everyone.
It's everyone.
You know, and like you said, like somebody knows somebody.
Yeah.
Whether
We're all trying
I love
to
it. Somebody knows somebody. Sometimes that somebody is you.
Right.
You know.
Sometimes it's you.
Yeah.
Shit.
What are the dates
November 29th through December 10th.
and where?
IRT Theater, which is 154 Christopher Street.
Is there a website or?
You know what? Go to thefarmtheater.org, and that is the farmtheater.org, and it'll be, and the information will be up today.
And I will say, you know, one other thing that I wanted to add to this, and something that we're doing, is an initiative that Patrick and I are spearheading, and that is, we have been doing a workshop with 3 high school students locally who are interested in solo work. And that workshop has been going on since the end of September, and the idea is that every performance that I do of Bully, the name of my show, will be paired with one of these 3 students. So they'll be performing their show, which will be somewhere about 15 minutes or so of their own work, talking about an issue that is of importance to them, not necessarily bullying.
Not necessarily bullying.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And have you been working with that? And they're ready to go. It's going to be.
Well, we're now at the point that their stories are ready to go, and now we're going to shape them for performance. But and it came it came out of the post-show discussion. Like it was so empowering to hear these kids talk about their experience with bullying. We were like, well, the next step with the show is let's empower them to talk about whatever they want to talk about. And
Yes.
what they want to talk about is so. I love that I could swear. I won't, but I just love that I can for right now. So cool that they're like, one of them is talking about immigration in real time. One of them is talking about discrimination and the value of hip hop for educating America. One of them is talking about doing the right thing, whether it's keeping your family together or taking an iPhone that doesn't belong to you.
How old are these kids?
15, 16, and 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
say
And we didn't say like you should write something important.
Immigration.
No, their brains are hooked up to the Matrix.
Yes.
Like the first movie, whoop, all the knowledge is just getting sucked into their brain.
Yeah.
These kids, it's like an audience. Like I had a teacher in college a professor in college who said when we would write scenes or work on solo show stuff, he's like, the audience is as smart as you are. Don't ever try to like, oh, you're like spoon feeding this thing to no. And the same for these kids. They're seeing things, they're reading things, they're learning things that I was not privy to maybe until my late teens, 20s. Maybe emotionally they're not as developed. But these other topics are at the forefront. They see it every day.
Yeah.
In some respects, they're very right. Yeah. They're very developed.
Really, they are. They're
Yeah.
incredibly, like it's funny. There's this very entertaining kid, Johan, who I don't know that much about hip hop, and when he starts, I have to tell him like, no, unpack that a little bit more. Explain that to me. And when he starts to explain what he likes about the music, all of a sudden I'm like, about, you know, the education of America and that we have to have a different narrative. And he's this happy, joyful kid who you don't think when you're out of that
I love it.
mouth is going to be.
It's amazing.
Shit, I'd like to get them in here with you guys.
Yeah, well, that'd be amazing. There are 3 fantastic people. You know, outside of their artistic endeavors, they're just amazing.
Where do
people.
they go to school? They go in Manhattan.
They're
Manhattan kids.
No, they're Queens. I think
Queens in the Bronx.
Queens in the Bronx.
Yeah, and I would say also that you know, go back to our earlier conversation where we're talking about the sort of the development of the cyberbullying and efforts and how it can feel hopeless. You know, this is something that Padraic and I feel like we can be proactive with. That you know, we begin a workshop like this. We're working with these 3 kids who they have something to say. Have something very powerful to say, and for me, that feels like, okay, this is a way that we can go forward and we can have an impact.
Make a difference.
I'm just going to say this thing too. It's in my head, and I hope it resonates in the play. But there's one student who took basically 5 weeks to figure out. She started kind of like this interview in a way. Like it started with joking about what she'd want to do, and then all of a sudden this thing dropped, and it was this thing she did last week, which, you know, it's talking about parents might separate, might not, and correlating it to whether or not doing the right thing in life, of like whether you take a phone that somebody left behind or not. and paralleling that to how you deal with your responsibilities as a parent. And I was like, the correlation was so, because I'm like, we can all be like, oh, there's somebody left their phone and I don't have a phone, and what do I do? And that dilemma of wanting that and not thinking like that dilemma's, you give them their phone, it's not yours, right? So you're like, it's tempting, it's whatever. But that struggle of like, how do I hold my family together? What's my responsibility as an individual and a parent? And I thought,
well, because there's multiple options.
Yeah.
You see the phone on the floor, you're like, listen, I'm going to leave it. That person might come back and get it. Or you take it because you're like, I need to get it back to this person because otherwise if I leave it, someone else is going to take it.
Or
so
you just take it.
Yeah, or you just take it and you're like, I'm putting this on eBay.
yeah. Well, I also learned how to unlock a phone.
Yeah, right.
I like how he was a little embarrassed to say that.
and that's part of what's developing in this one student's story, and it is. I mean, she has us laughing out loud, and also like being like, wait, hold on, what am I laughing at again? You know, it's really quite compelling.
And how long is your play?
It's exactly 60 minutes, and we do in fact. We do, like I said earlier, a post-show Q&A, and then just recently in this California tour that we just did, we actually have a version of, we do a curriculum. We have a curriculum now that is a sort of it is a complement to the show. So it is a curriculum that is catered toward middle school students, and then another one toward junior high school students and high school students, and it basically picks up where we leave off and encourages leadership. It encourages activism, and it encourages self-evaluation. You know.
Well, congratulations to you guys for doing that, because I don't know if a lot of people tell you, but that's something that the world needs, and not to make it fill it with hot air, but the truth is it does. And kids need some element of long form expression, not just, here's my now 280 character tweet.
Yeah.
But here's like something I can explore, like the young lady you said was kind of jokingly about this idea, and then when given the opportunity to develop it over a course of time, it became this refined thing.
Look,
So-
he held up the book, Bully the Curriculum.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just happened to have that in my bag here.
You just happen to have it. Look, and I know we have to wrap it up. You have to be somewhere soon, right? Thank you for coming, man. This was, you guys, I love when I bring people in that make me look a lot more intelligent than what I am. It's not easy to do, but you guys pulled it off. Except for the part when I asked you what the auditions were like for a one-man show.
Yeah, but that's great, because the lower the bar is, the easier it is for us to lift it.
There you go.
listen,
Thank you. It's always going to be low, Patrick. You can trust that in this
You could
place,
literally
the bar
just
is
walk
on the
over
floor.
it
Yeah,
if you want.
Step
You don't
over
have
the
to
bar
like lift or anything.
in this place.
It's a real pleasure talking with you guys.
No
Truly,
doubt.
thank you for
Thank
having
you,
us.
sir. Patrick Lillis.
Yep, nailed it.
I almost said Lee Kaplan.
Yes.
And I never.
No,
I'm
go ahead. Just say it the way you want to say it.
Contractually obligated not to say his name the right way.
Yeah.
So it's Afrim Gapalucci.
Very close, yeah.
Very close.
Very close.
And the inimitable.
Known this guy for years. Known him for years.
Inimitable genius of a man, TJ Stone, ladies and gentlemen. That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
He'll be auditioning for his own solo show tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to bring in other people for the podcast.
Oh, yes.
That's right.
And we're out. Signing off, TJ Stone. 12:08 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. And this is The Beatles with Help.
This has been Three People Like This Interviews with TJ Stone.
So they're gonna break it down and sell it 'cause I know that you be listening, huh? Said that I'm a movie star, said to drive me a big old car. Got a house one near one box. If you see me, believe me, I'm about to make you look a troll. Yeah. Well, hold up. Said you need to get a hold of your pride. Said I've been the bottom of it, da-da-da-da-da. So you need to get a hold of yourself. Yeah. Well, you see me, believe me, I'm about to make you look a troll. Yeah. But the one thing they always talking about, yeah, the one thing they always know, they always turn to me. They always turn at 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 me. look control you. But the one thing they always talking about, yeah, the one thing they always know, they always there. Me, they always staring at me. 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 Well, tell me